Hi everybody, Celeste here. So I don't know what got into me and made me decide to do this, but I thought, you know what? I love dimensional flowers, and Graphic 45 has this wonderful die here that I picked up ages ago. So it's not stuck on its cute little thing that we purchased it with, but let me just see if I can turn it a little bit so you can see from all angles. Anyway, so this is the long tag die, right? And each of the dies that they made for the tags has cute little gadgets on the inside. One of them has like a steampunk kind of thing. That's this one. I can't even remember what the other two are, although I could look them up and get them out of my bag for you, but I'm not going to do that today. So anyways, so in my card that I showed today, I decided that instead of using purchased flowers or a different brand, I wanted to use everything from Graphic 45. So this is an example of a rose, and I'll just hold it up here so you can see. I know in some ways it seems like a pine cone because it's coming out this way, but this is just how I like to do it. And I've learned how to do this over, quite a bit of time. But these dies, although they are not technically rose dies, I think we can turn them into roses just as well. And I also have made a little dogwood flower out of one, and I'll show you that one here. So I had to modify it. Obviously I had to use my little scissors and cut it somewhat to make it look like a dogwood. But anyway, so that's what we're doing today. And the tools are pretty simple. For myself, I prefer to use this ball tool to round things. And a lot of times I will just use my fingers, but I also have what I don't know why they call them golf tools, but I guess that's supposed to be like a groove of a golf. I don't play golf. But anyway, so I have, they come in a set of 4, so I have those. So for the flowers that I'm making today, the first thing I'm going to show you is actually one of the easiest things, and I just think it's the coolest. So when you use your leftover paper, so so this is from Cottage Life, and I think it was from that extra matching patterns and solids. So the back is like this, and you can cut it out solid like this, see, and that makes a very pretty little leaf. But I found that when you use it on here, you get a totally different look, which you can kind of see. Let me grab this card again. And you can see in here the little bit of white on here that it just makes it, I don't know, it makes it look cool. Same with these leaves here. So not my favorite leaf, but I thought I'd play with it. So anyways, so that was my cute little tip for when you're cutting things out. Sometimes I'm just, let's face it, I'm intrinsically lazy, and I do not want to reinvent the wheel. So why should I color all my papers, when they're already perfect little examples of things that I can use. So that was my first little fun thing that I tried with these, and I use them no matter what brand of paper I'm using. But today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I make a rose using the largest of this die here, and then I also used the medium size. So it comes with 3 of these. See, small, medium, large. See, maybe I'll put it down here, you can see better. Small, medium, large. And then it has these others, but I remember what it is. So these have cute little dots. I just I didn't want that on there. And it also comes with these individual leaves, which is how I made the leaves on that card. And then I'm practicing making this, what we call a peace rose. So I looked it up on the internet to see what they look like, because I certainly don't grow roses. And you can see I colored this a little bit, too much pink, and it made it look a little orangey there. Although, you know, the card's going to be given away. I could care less if it's perfect or not. Although that, of course, that's always our goal, right? Be perfect. So anyway, so that's what I've done. So just to save a little bit of time, I've already inked up most of these. When I first started making these with this particular set of dies, I wanted it to be a graduated size, but this one, it just seemed, and you can see that on this, it didn't seem like it went gradually from the small to the medium. So what I did is I took one of the large dies and I just moved it down like that, if you can see, and then I took my pencil, went around it, and on each of these petals made it just a little bit smaller, so it's not the tiny size. It's not, you know, where is it? There it is. It's not this size, but then again, it's not this size here either. So anyways, it works for me. So I like to color my my paper on both sides, because one never knows, and I'll show you a good example. So this flower, I did not color on the back so much. And you just never know what side somebody's going to look at it. Now on the centers I did, but not on these back ones. And so anyways, I've taken to inking the front and the back. And so I already did the back here. Now this is going to be the last of these. So I try to keep them in order. So this is going to be the very center here. This is going to be the next one, then this one, then this one, and then this is going to have the slightest amount. This I'm saving for something else to show you. So I'm going to use this here, this little yellow. I've already done the back, like I said, and then let's just get that going. Even though I love these big sponges, I do not want to use them when I'm using the pink, because I want a lighter hand. And I think that's what happened on that small one that's on the card over there. So I accidentally forgot to get out my ink for this little. Let me grab it. It is right here. And you know, maybe I picked too bright a color. I don't know. But for me, this is the color that I like. And so on these, I'm going to use these little tiny daubers just so I can have a lighter hand. Let me put that over here too. That's for something else. So when you look in the catalogs at a piece rose, the first two sets of petals don't have very much pink, but I'm going to put just a little tiny in the center. And I mean little tiny. Do you see how little that is? Because that makes me happy. So I'm going to do that here real fast. And then we'll move on. And like I said, I try to keep them in order so that I know which one how much I'm going to ink them, but also which one to pick up next when I start assembling. So this obviously just has just a little bit. We'll just ink a little, and remember on the back as well, just a little tiny bit. And let me just go through this as fast as I can. Like I said, I did ink the back in advance to save a little time, but the process isn't a speedy one, even when I do have shortcuts. So this is the third petal, and it's not a perfect science. I mean, I'm not an artist, to be honest. I'm horrible at watercoloring and coloring in stamps. So this is my third petal. Then this one's going to be my fourth. You'll see I have a little bit less yellow because in the pictures that I've seen, it's almost like there's some white between the pink and the yellow. So that's what I'm doing, just the tiniest little bit because it's very subtle. And oops, got a little bit too much on there. Obviously, that petal will be hidden underneath something else later on. But for now, this is what we've got, just a little tiny bit, just very gently inking the edges, and then on the back, just a little bit, because the pink and the yellow together, obviously yellow and red make orange, so I don't want to get too heavy-handed. I want it to remain pink. It helps, I think, to make sure that the yellow is completely dried. And when I was making that one flower yesterday evening, it was like late at night and I was just trying to hurry through it and I probably didn't wait. So there, I've colored a little bit there on the back. And then my very last one, I'm still gonna only do the edges here because remember, we want some white to be showing. So we're doing this very gently and a little on the back in a second, and then we'll get towards assembling. Now I could do this with just plain glue, but in the interest of time today, I have turned on my hot glue gun to help with the flowers setting up, so I can just move from one round of petals to the next more quickly. There we go. All right, so that's all the inking I'm going to do. Put that, and that, by the way, is this Ranger ink, and that's the fuchsia. And then this was just sunflower yellow. So in case anybody needed to know that. So putting my little dies over here, I'm going to clean off my paper. And we're going to start shaping. The first thing we have to do is we have to, for me, I like to have something to hold on to. So I'm going to take this little wire from a wired stamen, and I'm just going to curl it around and make a little ball head so that it stays put. And nobody's going to see this. It doesn't have to be too big or too small. And you know, there's nothing precise. So you can see this is what I've done with that. And then I'm going to take my handy dandy little horrible piece of styrofoam, and I'm going to I'm going to poke a little hole here. So I forgot I want to do it this way. So I'll know pretty much where center is, and that's key in a minute. So just a little tiny hole. And while I'm doing it, I might as well do all of these. Just a little tiny hole, because we're going to have to thread that wire through it. All right, and the last one. So just little itsy bitsy hole there. Okay, oh, and I don't need that anymore. Okay, so now with this center one, I'm going to actually cut some of these petals away. So I'm going to go like this so that I only have 3. All right. And we're going to put these to the side, and we're going to focus on making the bud right now. So I'm going to put this hole here again. Come here, hole. There we go. I'm going to put this little wire in here. Hopefully, get in there. There we go. Okay, pull it all the way up. And this is when I'm going to start curling. So I have this little tool here. I just use the end of this to very gently get it started. And I have tried spraying my petals with water, and I've tried doing it without, and quite frankly, I find that it doesn't matter. It's gonna wrinkle one way or another. And then I have this. This goes with that Spellbinders thing. Mine came in a kit, and forgive me all the dirt here. I guess I should wipe that with some alcohol. So this is a very tiny little slit. I think they call it quilling, that this is a quilling tool. But for our purpose, we're gonna leave this one to the side. We're gonna take these two, you're gonna slip the paper in it, and we're gonna curl it around until it's all twirled up, just like that. And we're gonna take this one right beside it. So it's the two that are closest to each other. And we're gonna twirl this one around, just like this, okay? And we're going to put a little dab of glue right here to hold that in place. And then we're going to pull them up, and we're going to wrap these around each other. So this one that I just curled, I uncurled it a little bit so I could wrap it around it. And this is the center of the rosebud, or the rose that we're making. This is the only time I'm going to use glue, actual glue, instead of the glue gun this time. So I'm going to put this like here, little tiny dab, and I'm going to hold that with my finger, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. And then I won't need this again for this flower. So I'm going to hold that down. So meanwhile, while I'm holding this, I'm going to slip this petal in between here. All right, and curl it just a little tiny bit that direction. And then on the other side, curl it a little tiny bit towards the opposite direction. I'll show you how it looks in a second so you can get a better idea. And remember, this is our smallest petal set that we're making, so it's the middle size of the 3 petals that come in that set. So you'll see how it is here. It's curled in on the inside, curled out this way. And so I'm going to put a little dab of glue now down here, and can you see the bottom of my wire? That's where I'm going to put my dab of glue, just a smidgy. Easier said than done, of course. And then I'm going to hold it in place for a minute because I want it to set up. Get that glue off my fingers. Okay. Didn't do it, did it? There we go. All right, so we've got that set up. And then we're going to work on the other 2 petals that go for our bud. I'm going to use my little tool here to round this a little bit. I used to make wedding cakes, and unfortunately when I got into paper crafting, my OCD did not go away, so I still need to fiddle with everything. There we go. So that's all I've got so far, if you can see it. Okay, those little glue bits. Now we're going to take these 2 leftover petals that I cut off, and we're going to put this little ridge side down, and we're just going to round them a little bit with our ball tool. And if you don't have a ball tool, you can use, quite frankly, you can use the end of a pencil. So you'll see your eraser will work really nice too. I just like the ball tool personally. And then once again, we're going to curl out what I would call the left-hand side petal. And it really doesn't matter which one you curl out, because if you'd rather do the right hand, you can. It's just that you have to be consistent, at least for this first part. So I'm putting my little tool on the paper, grabbing it with my fingernail and pulling it out. Now this is a little bit more fiddly. So while it's all rested, I'm going to want to wrap these in here. And you'll see what I mean in a second. Now this one here, the inside, we can curl it in with our fingers, but I'm not too worried about it. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue right here, just a smidgy. And then I'm going to take my petal and I'm going to hold it for a second. And whatever, doesn't work out perfectly, we'll get it fixed on the next round of petals that go up. Because this is the only one we actually have to cut. Here's the next one. I'm going to put a little dab of glue right here at the base of our rosebud. Little dab will do ya. And I know it dries pretty quick, so you got to get this next petal on pretty quick. And then I like to have them, in, out. So this one is supposed to go in, and I didn't do that, so it'll still turn out okay though. All right, so that's not a perfect rosebud, but like I said, everything will work out in the end when we get the other sets of petals on. If I was just making a rosebud, I would probably spend a great deal more time on this, and I would have used the larger die because it's just easier to work with a larger die. So while this is cooling off a little bit, I'm going to start with my next set of petals. Now this is the second one, and it still is going to need to have a little bit of curling as well. So, but we're going to do it, we're going to use this part that's pinked. That's going to be the outside. Oh yeah, I forgot we need to round these a little bit. So just a little bit, just to kind of break up the fibers. I'm just going in a circle. And I know this seems like this is taking a long time, but when you get the hang of it and you don't have to do anything, you can just have like TV on in the background or music in the background, it goes a lot faster. So like I said, we're going to take this outer on the left, and I'm just going to curl it a little bit, just a little, on each one of these. And 3, number 4. Oops, that didn't quite go the way I like it. Curl that a little bit more. There we go. And then this one. All right. All right. So remember, we have that hole that we punched a minute ago. So we're going to enhance that hole so we can see it. And now we're going to thread this one in, and we're going to glue it in place just a little tiny bit. And there. So that's going to hold for a second. And while that's holding, I'm going to start shaping these others. Now you can use your ball tool with this, or you can just use your fingers. Everybody has their favorite way of doing it. I like to do both, which probably isn't so smart, but just like if I was making a peony, now this one is going to be on top instead of curled in. This one's going to be on the outside, so all of these are like this. So I'm just going to continue to break up the fibers on these. And go. There we go. I'm gonna enhance that little hole a little bit. Did that one. And then this one. Okay. And I'm going to enhance that hole again a little bit more. Okay, put that over there. All right, so we have those now. We're going to start shaping them a little bit more. So you could, it's your choice, depends on the size of your petal. You can use this little tool here. That makes them, okay, kind of come up. So I know some people like use molds and they have all sorts of little gadgets. And it's not that I don't have them, but I just keep coming back to this particular look. So now I've gotten out of order. Can anybody tell me which one that is? Oh, I know which one it is. Oh, it goes right here. So this one is going to be a little bit tighter. So I'm going to want to use this golf tool. And I put the pointy in, and for some reason I do. Again, I'm going to curl it around here. There we go. And a couple more. Now you don't have to use the 5 layers or whatever of petals if you don't want. At each stage you're going to have a different shape, right? So if I had wanted just a rose bud, I could have stopped with that one petal if I had shaped it properly. And I can do that in a minute, show you how that works, but you don't need a wire for that one, which is kind of nice, unless of course you want to wrap maybe some floral tape on it so that you can have an actual bouquet. So this is our base, our bottom, and then here. So now we're back to taking care of the rest of this. So I'm going to put a little dab of glue a little bit farther away from the base, and then we're going to just pinch this with our fingers like so. It doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes I like to make sure that everything is oriented like that, and sometimes I don't care. So this is what it is while it's drying, right? So it's just gonna be held in place for a minute while it gets set up. And then after this sets for a second, if you wanted to add some gloss, this is when you're gonna add your gloss. So I'm gonna do that just to show people how it works. And I'm gonna get this out of the way so I don't get gloss on my mat. So we're just going to let this sit for a second more. And it's almost ready. And then when I let go, this will open up a little bit, and that's okay. That's what I want it to do. I want it to open up. So there we go. So this is kind of like what they would call a Cecil Bruner rose. And I did it backwards. Do you see how I did that? I managed to put the pink on the outside, which is not what I wanted. So before I go further, before I add any glossy accents, I do have to put that little bit of pink right in there that I wanted. Just right in that center, the little heart shape, heart indent. There we go. And then there. All right. So it's just a little tiny bit. All right. So in order to gloss, this is my favorite glossy stuff. It's called Diamond Glaze, and I know they have lots of different brands, but this is my favorite one. And so then one of the nice things about gloss is that it makes your paper a lot firmer. So when you start getting around to the point where you're going to put your flowers on your card, it's just more forgiving. Now what I'm going to do is these big petals first, because I want them to dry before I start putting them on this one. So I'm just gonna paint them. This is how I do it. I know there's, you know, Wink of Stella and all sorts of things, but this is what works for me. And like I said, it strengthens my paper, which is always nice, especially if you have to mail it, which of course we're not going to talk about given the cost of postage nowadays. The only way I'm going to mail any Christmas cards is if I'm sending them a package anyways. So that's just going to set up, and then I'll just slip it in the box with my gift so that I don't have to pay that extra postage, because, you know, it just amazes me how everything is a little bit more expensive. And so people ask me, you know, oh, how do you mail your cards? I don't. If I just give them to people, it's just easier that way. And did I do that one? I did. So I have one more, I think, on this set. Yes, okay. And then this one, and then we'll do the beginnings of our rose in a second. After this stuff dries, you can still adjust the shape of your petals. They're just a little bit more sturdy. Okay, so I'm going to do the inside first. Now I didn't get this quite as tight as I wanted to, so I'll probably be working with some hot glue and squishing at the base of this in a little bit. But for right now, we're just gonna get the gloss on. You can see I should have put it a little bit closer down there. Then again, you don't want too much either, so just add a little bit here. There you go, we're done. And after it dries, if you don't like the shape a petal has suddenly acquired, you can fiddle with that. So put that to the side. And then I'm just gonna put my brush in some water here. There we go. Put that to the side too. Okay, so we got this one. So now we're gonna want to start adding our petals. And this one comes next. Just thread through it. And you're gonna want to offset each set of petals, which means that you're gonna want this petal, the main part, to be between these two. I'm gonna put a little bit of hot glue down there, and you've got a minute, so before it sets up, to get them set up exactly where you want. There you are. Just hold that for a second. And then we're gonna do the next one. Again, pop it through the hole here. Kind of figure out where you're gonna have it, but it doesn't matter. Like I said, you do have a couple of seconds before the hot glue sets up, so you can adjust where your petals are gonna be. Maybe a little smidgy that way. And then the last one. I'm going to thread it through. Again, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue in there. And then make sure I've got my petals offset. And voila. So I'm going to do a little rearranging of my petals down here. I don't like how they are, so I'm going to fiddle with it somewhat. Oh, this one goes in. That was my problem, right, all along. So we're going to just squish a little glue on there. You can see why it would take forever if I was doing just regular glue, because it just would not dry nearly fast enough. So I'm just going to hold this, and I'm going to hold my petals the way I want so that when it dries, it's the way I want it. And again over here. There we are. So let's just hold this for a second. And we're almost done. There, so we're going to want to pull things up again. Again, like I said, you can always readjust your petals after that glossy accent is dried somewhat. Pull these up so that it looks the way you want it to. Curling them with my fingers, kind of like you would pie crust in a way. There we are. So does it look like a rose that you find in nature? No. Does it look better than one that you're going to buy off of the store shelf? Yeah, definitely. And then I'm going to finish it up by putting a little dab of glue at the bottom here. And when it's all dry, we'll just snip that wire with your handy dandy little wire cutters, and then you glue it on your flower, on your card or your book or whatever. And then the next thing I wanted to show you before we go, I wanted to show you how you can turn one of these into a dogwood flower, because you know dogwoods do have this little dent in here. So I have glue on my fingers, sorry about that. So moving right along, I made this one, which was rather imperfect because I was in a hurry and tried to do things before the glue set. So with these, what we're going to do again is I'm going to punch a little tiny hole right here so I know where the center is, because I'm going to cut this into 5 pieces. We only need 4 of them. There we go. And from the 5th one, sorry, you can just save it. So in case you know, if you get enough of these, you've got an extra flower in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of extra card and I'm going to pop out 2 holes. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's got a little hole underneath there. So I've got 2 circles. So those circles are going to help provide a little bit of support. So you don't have to do too much of these at the beginning, in my opinion anyways. I might round them a little bit, just a little. So we'll do that real quick. And originally I did do this with my Dry's clear glue, but like I said, I was in too big of a hurry and it kind of tore the paper, so I'm not going to do that right now. And then I'm going to pull this up with my thumb. Do you see how that kind of popped up like that? So I'm going to do these 4 petals like that. And then make yourself a little X or cross on the page. So here's my pencil. So if you make an X, that just helps you line up where you're going to put your petals. So you're going to take each one of these with a tiny dab of glue, very tiny dab of glue. You're going to set them on each other like that. And that's where you use the end of your golf tool, because I don't want to touch hot glue with my fingers. And then we're going to do the same thing with the other 2. Little tiny dab of glue here. Put them like so. Touch it with the golf tool, protect yourself. Okay. And then this little circle that we cut is going to be our base for holding our flower together. Might want to use tweezers or something to hold it in place, because I wasn't thinking, I didn't do that. We're going to put that in the center, and we're going to put our little first 2 flowers on there. Petals, sorry. And then we're going to do it again. Where are those things? Here they are. Put that on here. Move it to where I want it. So not perfect, nonetheless. There we go. Then we have one more little piece of paper to put on there. And that just covers up your join. There. So not the most perfect dogwood in the world, but you know, it is something that you can make from your flowers. And then you're going to take, or at least I did, take one of these little stamps. We're going to stamp I think I'm going to stamp the bigger one. Push that down. I'm going to stamp it. So it's got those cute little lines on it. And then if you want to, you can, do I have anything that I can color the edges with? I do. Color this. So it's a lot more fiddly, it's true, than just having a dogwood die, but this is using what you already have in your possession, right? And then the last little bit that I would do, frankly, would be these prills. There's the glue. Teeny tiny little bits of prills. Put that on there. And then you've got a flower. And you put enough of these together, and if there are some that are imperfect, nobody will even notice. And then you add your leaves with it, they really won't notice. See? So anyways, that's all I have to share with you today, just how to make dogwoods and roses, and have fun with the dies that you've already got. And I hope you enjoyed it. And y'all have a great rest of your weekend.